The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
On this week's Court TV podcast, we'll cover the tragic story of Orson and Orinn West, two young brothers reported missing in December of 2020 and now believed to be dead, allegedly murdered by their adoptive parents, Trezell and Jacqueline West. Court TV's Chanley Painter joins me to talk about what was learned when the parents were charged.
This is the Court TV podcast with Vinnie Politan.
Welcome to the Court TV podcast. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. This episode, I want to introduce you to a story that you may not know, but you should know about. And this is a case that comes to us out of California, a town called California City, known as Cal City. And back in 2020, I've been reporting on this for over a year, but it's still, for some reason, I don't know why, this story was flying under the radar. I don't understand it. Because back in December of 2020, there was a report of some missing children. Orrin and Orson were their names. Orson and Orinn West, two little boys, 3 and 4 years old. Okay, tiny toddlers, and kind of gave them the name, the Cal City Toddlers. And they were brothers, but they weren't just any brothers; they were adopted brothers. So they were part of a new family, a young couple, the Wests, Jacqueline and Trezell, mom and dad. A youngish couple, but they adopted these two little boys. They adopted two other children and had two biological children. So they had 6 kids all together. And you look at that picture and like, wow, these parents are amazing, right? You're young, and they don't have a ton of money, but you're adopting children, and you're taking children who are in a compromised situation in foster care, and then raising them as your own. And then tragedy strikes this family because in December of 2020, the parents called 911 reporting that their two youngest boys, were missing. And it was shocking. And again, a little bit under the radar. Might be because of where it's coming out of. You know, Cal City is like a town outside of Bakersfield. And Bakersfield's not the biggest city in the world either, but this is like outside of Bakersfield. And the parents were speaking about it and everything else. So it's a case that we've been following for more than a year. And it began with the search for the missing Cal City toddlers. And I want to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who's joining us. And Chanley, I wanted to get your first impressions of this mystery, right? Because I started covering this case and this story as we've got 2 missing children out of this small town in California.
Vinny, this is a heartbreaking story. I mean, you just look at the pictures of Orson and Orinn, 3 years old, 4 years old, and your heart just goes out to them. And what struck me about this case is that they're missing at 3 and 4 years old. The story the adoptive father is giving is that he left the back gate of the backyard open. He goes inside for a little bit, and the boys just disappear. And I start, watching video of what Cal City looks like. And it's the winter, it's December 20th. And these little babies, they wouldn't go that far. So immediately, of course, I think something is wrong. Something is up here. And I think that instinct also was with the authorities who took this missing children's report as well. And it just spun from there.
Right. And you approach it initially, you're wondering, well, what could have happened, right? And to me, there's a couple factors here. The first is you described the area. I mean, it is flat, it is desolate. These are small ranch homes, good, hardworking people in the neighborhood. The houses are a little spread out, so everyone's got a little bit of land, but they're very modest homes, but it's very flat. It's like if someone was coming down the street, you would see them. And his story was that he was out, because it was cold, he was out getting some wood. and he was like chopping wood, like just across the street. And to me, okay, so you left the gate open, the kids are playing in the backyard, and maybe they got out, but you're just across the street. And it's two. That's what makes this so different than most stories, right? If you're talking about an abduction, someone here would have to abduct two children at once, 3 and 4 years old, and dad, while he's outside, sees or hears nothing.
Nobody saw or heard anything, according to the authorities. There's a neighborhood. They lived in a subdivision. There's homes, like you said, not too close together, but there's neighbors. And even when the police started canvassing the neighborhood, these neighbors claim they've never seen these children before, Orson Orinn West. So that's also concerning. Even with the helicopter search overhead with infrared in a 5-mile radius, they don't have any sign of these two babies. And the story's just not adding up with the adoptive parents.
Now, the parents, during the course of all this search, early on held a press conference. And it's fascinating to watch. You can go to the show links and you can click and watch it for yourself. But it's fascinating to watch because it's, again, a young couple. Remember, this is December of 2020. So we're still in the midst of COVID. They're in California. They're even more heightened regarding COVID there. So they're wearing masks the whole time. And you can't see their face, but you can see their eyes and you can hear them. You see their body language. And they're answering questions. So this is the mother speaking first, Jacqueline. And again, they're surrounded by members of the media, but remember, these are adopted children. Also in the audience are members of the biological family who had gotten word that the children were missing. Let's take a listen.
They do not just roam around, these patches. They definitely would have been picked up or something. And I don't know what to chalk it up to, right? Something doesn't sound right to me. But again, they're a young couple,
right?
Chanley, which was the other unusual factor here. Such a young couple with not a ton of money would adopt all these children and there's nothing wrong. I mean, it's great when people adopt children.
Yes.
I mean, it's angelic to do that, but it struck me as unusual because they're so young and they had these 6 kids, and then just the demeanor of the mom there and the dad during this press conference.
It was awkward, to say the least, especially like you mentioned, wearing the mask during this press conference. And we see a lot of parents in distress, right, in the work that we do. I didn't see a lot of emotion coming from them with the press conference. Yes, they're pleading for help to find the family, but I'm sensing more emotion coming from the extended family, the biological side of the family, the extended adoptive side of the family. And the tragedy here, yes, we need more people that take in foster kids and adopt children in America. And this is, they're in their 30s, early 30s, the West, and they have 2 of their own, like you said, 2 adopted. And then these 2 also just adopted about a year before this happened. And so it's really, good for them for doing that. But this is something that possibly Vinnie could have been prevented had maybe the system or something looked into the placement of these children. And I think that's really weighing on the minds of a lot of people right now.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. 6 children is a lot of children, and they're all young. They're all young. I mean, it is tough enough for folks. When you have one child, it's like, oh my goodness. Then you have 2, you're like, all right, one of us can handle each one. Then once you get above 2, you're playing zone. But you've got 6. You don't have a chance. You don't have a chance. 6 young ones, 4 of them adopted. To me, that makes no sense. It makes no sense. I've seen families in the past, and usually it's older adults who have raised their own family and they start adopting a lot of children, and sometimes they'll adopt a mixture of older and younger children, and they do incredible work. But that wasn't this situation. They didn't have the experience. They didn't have the means. I didn't understand the whole scenario. Let's take a listen now. This is the father, Trezell, and he is now addressing the issue that everyone is thinking at this moment. Well, how do two, not one, how do two children just like vanish? Take a listen.
That's understandable. I would think the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's exactly the point. And if we can find our babies, then guess what? That's no. And that's all I want is to find our babies.
And there he's questioned about, people looking at the parents. Weird, really strange. It's even stranger when you watch it, happen. But to me, the way they were talking, I've spoken, Chanley, if you just give me a moment here on one story, because this one sticks in my mind, because to me, it was so real. There was a young father had a little girl that was missing. And, same thing happens. People look at the parents, they look at everyone. And I got this guy on my show while his daughter was missing. And as I'm interviewing him, I'm saying, wait, where are you? He says, I'm calling. I'm on an ATV right now searching for my daughter. The guy hadn't slept in 2 days, and it was dark, and he hadn't stopped searching. There was this incredible desperation. At that moment, I knew this father had nothing to do with it. This is how you would do anything and everything. He was searching at the same time he's getting the word out that his daughter's missing by talking to me on the phone. To me, it struck such a chord, because that's how you envision a father or mother would react when their child is missing. And that's what he did. And it turned out, unfortunately, his daughter was abducted, molested, and murdered by a sex offending neighbor of his. And that was the sad ending to that story, and for that search. But I knew in 2 seconds in speaking with that father, he had nothing to do with it. I'm just getting a different vibe here, Chanley.
Yeah. Well, Vinnie, when the massive search, for Orson and Orinn West, a massive search was undertaken. Many agencies, helicopters, volunteers. At one point, it swelled to 200 volunteers out walking in this desert-like terrain, trying to find any sign of these babies. But the adoptive parents were not out there, Vinnie. In fact, they were telling the media that the police had told them to stay at home, to stay inside. But their extended family out there trying to search, the biological family out there trying to search, people donating money for a reward for any information into what happened to Orrin and Orson, up to $120,000. Almost like everyone else was out trying to find them, but their actual adoptive parents.
Yeah, and I've heard that line before. I don't think that father I spoke to, I don't care what law enforcement told him to do, there was no way he was not searching for his little girl. And I'm sorry, but it's if you truly are the parent, the one who loves that child more than anything else, the child that you either chose to adopt or bring into this world, the bond should be exactly the same. And you would do anything and literally move mountains, and no one's going to tell you to stop. Because I've spoken to other parents like that as well, who have lost adult children who are missing. And this father left his job, moved across the country, and for 6 months has not stopped looking for his son. For 6 months. And we didn't see that here. You mentioned the biological family. The biological mother did speak. She did speak. And I know the rest of the family as well has been very involved in the search. Let's take a listen to her.
If they find my kids, can they just give them back to me? Whatever I have to do to work on it, to get them. I have a home, I have a car, I have a job, I have money. It's nothing to provide for them. I come from a good background, as you can see, and I don't understand. I just want my babies. If they find them, just give them back to me, please. That's all I want.
And when you hear that, contrasting with what we just heard from Trezell and Jacqueline, the adoptive mother and father, the mother and father, once you adopt them, it's like you are the parents. I mean, the contrast could not be greater to this tragedy of two missing children.
Right, Vinny. That's what we just played is what you expect to hear from a parent who has a child missing. That emotion, that pleading for the public's help. And it's such a stark contrast to the adopted parents that were giving a press conference with their mask on their face. And it's so heartbreaking because you think that the biological mom and dad, they entrusted the system. These babies were taken from them for safekeeping, Vinny, and they weren't kept safe.
So during the course of this search, some of the things that happened, there was a search warrant executed in the home in Cal City where they were living. And then we were getting updates, through the years, I guess, because it started in December of 2020, and updates trying to figure out, what's the status of the investigation? What's the status of the investigation? And they apparently have spoken to 120 people. They've issued subpoenas. They've searched. But the bottom line to all of that is that these boys to this day have not been found. They have seemingly disappeared. And that is unsettling. And let's go back again to the parents' view on all this, which is that it had to be an abduction. So there's two ways that plays out, right? There's like the creepy person driving through the neighborhood. This is around dusk when they're disappearing, by the way. It's late in the afternoon, and then by the time they call police, the sun is starting to set. Because I've seen some security video from neighbors and such. So that's part of the story is when it was all taking place. It was right around Christmas. Mom said she was inside wrapping Christmas gifts, but because she was wrapping the gifts, let the kids go outside and play, even though it was a little bit cold to be out there. So the one scenario is, again, the creepy guy or gal or couple driving through the neighborhood and luring the kids into a car. But looking at the geography of the house and the yard and where he was, I can't imagine how that could happen without him seeing it or noticing it. To me, it would be impossible for that. It would make no sense. Right? I mean, it made no sense.
It doesn't add up, Vinny. It doesn't. And I think the investigators immediately recognized that. Looking at the neighborhood, checking out the story of the parents, and just the age of these kids. 3 years old and 4 years old, okay, maybe it's like they would have talked to a stranger, even though parents say don't talk to strangers, and something would have happened. But this is a neighborhood. There's people out. It's around Christmas time. People have family visiting. Something would have been seen. And these days, Vinny, there's a lot of home security videos, doorbell cameras, anything that would have led these investigators to think that they could have been kidnapped, or the parents' story maybe would have made sense. But there was absolutely no evidence of any of that, or really any crime scene. And that's also striking to me. And I know that we've learned that the Bakersfield police actually took over the investigation at one point, and that's interesting to me as well, instead of the Cal City investigators. So there's a lot we still don't know.
Now, the other possible scenario would be that there was an abduction by a neighbor. So it wouldn't require a car, right? A neighbor kind of stalking it out, seizes the moment, maybe even, can lure the kids into their home very quickly so there's no vehicle. And that never panned out either. But to me, that was the only other possibility here, based upon the parents' story. Because I just did not believe that this isn't a busy city street. It's not even a busy suburban street. If someone's come down the street, you would notice it. They'd be picked up by one of many of the ring bell and security cameras in the neighborhood. And I think with two children, if one gets grabbed, the other one may say something. One of the two is going to say something, scream, and they were described as rambunctious. They were actually described by their parents as rambunctious. So how easily could one person or two people scoop up two rambunctious kids, 3 and 4, without dad noticing anything while they're all outside at the same time?
It's so unlikely. And, you look at statistics of, missing children in the National Center, for missing and exploited children. They keep statistics. It's so rare, Vinny, that there is this sort of abduction, right? It's less than 1% of the missing 30,000 children that there are, that this actually does happen. It's an unlikely scenario to begin with. And, I'm with you. I can't think of any other possibility with today, with security cameras, with investigators canvassing the neighborhood, looking for leads, interviewing people, that there's anything else that could have happened but to point the finger towards the adoptive parents.
So when we come back, we're going to hear from the district attorney, a huge development, a huge announcement in this case. We will break it down piece by piece next.
For more Court TV, watch it on cable, over the air, Roku, or go to CourtTV.com and stream live gavel-to-gavel coverage. Catch up on the big moments from our current cases and relive some of Court TV's most historic trials. Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
This morning, I'm saddened to announce that the investigation has revealed that Orrin and Orson West are deceased. The investigation has also revealed that they died 3 months before their adoptive parents reported them missing. However, I am pleased to announce that this week, the Kern County Grand Jury indicted Trezell and Jacqueline West, the adoptive parents, for the murder of Orrin and Orson West.
That is the Kern County District Attorney out in California making the announcement that Trezell and Jacqueline West, who adopted 2 little boys, have been indicted for the murder of those 2 little boys, who they reported missing out of Cal City in December of 2020. And there was no sign of them. And now, after speaking to dozens and dozens and dozens of witnesses, executing search warrants, and then taking the investigation from Cal City to Bakersfield, California. What's the significance there? Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter. Chanley, you alluded to this in our first segment, that the investigation that started in Cal City, the search for Orrin and Orson West, really ended up in Bakersfield, California. Mm-hmm. That is so significant in trying to piece together what happened to these 2 boys.
It really is, Vinnie, and it may explain why the investigators in Cal City didn't find a lot of evidence at that home where the toddlers allegedly were missing from. I mean, huge revelation that the prosecutor believes that they died 3 months earlier than when they were actually reported missing in December of 2020. But she goes on to say in that press conference that it was about a week after the boys were reported missing that she gained some crucial information that came to light that brought that involvement of the Bakersfield Police Department, which is where the West previously lived, Vinnie, before moving to Cal City. So they moved to Cal City in September 2020, which was the month that prosecutors say these babies were murdered. And so Bakersfield took over this investigation, I believe it was last March. And like you said, it was a massive investigation to interview a lot of people, search warrants, and they aren't really revealing much more about what they were able to discover, but they were able to convince a grand jury to bring charges.
Right. And in that announcement, let's get to the first thing. The investigation reveals that the boys are dead. They have not found the remains or bodies of Orrin and Orson West. So to me, this is a fascinating element to what this investigation revealed. I mean, they've got some evidence that the boys are dead, and they believe it's evidence that they can prove beyond any and all reasonable doubt. So where does that evidence come from? In what form? She wasn't able to reveal it. But again, it all goes back to Bakersfield. It goes back to Bakersfield and all the people that they've interviewed. And one of the things she said that really stuck out to me was she said, we have circumstantial and direct evidence. Whenever I hear the word direct evidence, I zoom in. I'm like, oh, direct evidence, right? This is what defense attorneys are always crying that the prosecution doesn't have. Well, There's only a few kinds of direct evidence. There is an admission, a confession, right? That's a direct evidence because I was there. I committed the crime. I'm admitting to it. That's direct evidence. There is eyewitness testimony, right? Which would be someone saw the actual crime committed. Okay. So I witnessed the murder of these children. That would be direct evidence. A videotape, direct evidence, right? Someone records it and you see it. So now everyone becomes an eyewitness to it because the video recording is direct evidence. I don't know what other kind of direct evidence they could potentially have. So I'm wondering if there was an admission, maybe not an admission to authorities and law enforcement, but perhaps some sort of admission by Jacqueline or Trezell to a third party about what happened. And that would be direct evidence.
For sure. And that's a possibility, while the authorities aren't releasing the details, obviously, and the information has been sealed. If you look at this indictment, Vinnie, it sheds some light, especially because it alleges aggravating circumstances. And they're really concerning to me. If you look at some of the aggravating circumstances, it actually alleges that the defendants induced a minor to commit or assist in the commission of the crime and threatened witnesses or dissuaded witnesses from coming forth or interfered in the judicial process. So, Vinnie, I'm reading this going, they had 4 other children, right, who may have seen something, heard something, were told not to say something. Is that the direct evidence?
This is troubling on many levels. If those other children were somehow part of all of this and subjected to all this, I was hoping when I heard that announcement that, okay, something happened to these 2 other children, but maybe the other 4, even though it's 8 people in one little house, I'm hoping that maybe they, weren't subject to it. They weren't witness to it. They weren't a part of it. But as you mentioned, this indictment seems to indicate that there's a very good possibility that the children may have been exposed to something or been involved in something. And that makes the tragedy even worse here.
It really does. I can't even fathom. I mean, it goes on to say that this is a crime of murder that involved great violence, high degree of cruelty, viciousness, callousness, Vinnie, and was planned out according to these aggravating circumstances with sophistication or professionalism. My mind is blown by what these babies may have suffered in those final moments before their lives were taken under this indictment and what it alleges. So it's just so sad.
And there's and the one part I don't follow with the indictment is that it's planned out, it's cruel and everything else, yet they're not charging them with first degree murder. There's no, they don't believe at this point that they can prove premeditation.
Right.
So I'm wondering, I'm trying to picture the scenario. Is it a scenario of just torturing these children and then they die as a result of the torture? And how could that happen? Again, everything is times 2.
Right.
Right? And this is a bizarre conversation right now, but we have to go there because we're trying to take the facts and match them up with the law here. If you are torturing one child and they die as a result of the torture, okay, I didn't intend to kill them. I didn't plan to kill them. I just planned to torture them. Okay, whatever. So I get it. No premeditation. But it happened times 2, right? So would they have died simultaneously? But as soon as one dies, then it's got to be a light bulb over your head that the other one, if you're doing something to the other one, that other one's going to die as well, which to me then brings in this premeditation.
Yes, you're exactly right. Because I'm reading this indictment, Vinnie, and that aggravator of the planning and sophistication is only for Orson, right? It's not for Orinn as an aggravator. So maybe Orinn was the one who died first. They knew what they were doing when little Orson maybe stepped in or who knows what happened. But it is interesting to me that aggravators under each of these counts are not the same for each victim, which is telling.
Which tells me they have some very specific evidence. Very specific evidence. Let me ask you this. We talked about direct evidence. Could it be so sick that they recorded this evidence on video? We're covering another story out of Florida, and again, involves kids. I don't understand these people. And I believe this was an adopted child as well, who was kept in a box in the garage, locked in a box that was built. And these are people who have millions of dollars, by the way. They built a box in a garage, and they had a surveillance camera there. So they were recording everything that was happening inside that box. I wonder if it's something sick like that they tortured this kid in some box and had because all this surveillance stuff, everything is very inexpensive, easy to do. Maybe the direct evidence is video. I mean, that would be sick. That would be absolutely sick.
Absolutely unconscionable, Vinnie. I can't even imagine the monsters that these parents would be to videotape anything like this. And I don't know, though, if that was the evidence of this prosecution, I don't think it would have taken 3 months to indict them. I don't think it would be first-degree murder. I don't know that the evidence is that strong, but we do this every day where it wouldn't surprise me that there's real evil like that living in the world.
So now let's get back to the upcoming trial, and we'll see when it happens. Could happen relatively quickly. We shall see. But here's the DA addressing the question. This happens all the time. It's a case where you have missing children. No body has been recovered. How on earth are you going to prosecute this? DA? Well, she answered the question.
As I explained in my earlier statements, no body homicides are tried all the time. And we have evidence that was sufficient to convince the grand jury, and we have sufficient evidence that we believe will convince a jury that they are not alive. And we have evidence.
She's confident. She's confident. And these cases are not as unusual as, members of the media make it. But it is an issue. It's an absolute issue, right? Because you've got to prove first that the person is actually dead. When you've got a body, that's much easier. It takes 2 seconds inside a courtroom. But here, you've got to prove almost a negative that these children are no longer alive. And you've got to convince the jury that they weren't abducted, that someone isn't holding them in a box in a basement somewhere in Cal City.
Right. And it's totally doable. Like you said, she has every right to be confident in her evidence, circumstantial evidence. And this jury, when there is a trial, will be instructed that they should weigh direct evidence the same as circumstantial evidence here as they consider all of it. And so it's very possible. It could be, I don't know what they have yet. I wish I could read this probable cause statement, Vinnie, and all the reports to see exactly what evidence they do have. But we know it's a lot because, again, they called 50 witnesses in this grand jury investigation, 3 months of evidence, and no doubt in the prosecutor's mind that they are deceased. Where else would they be? I mean, it's common sense almost if you think about what the evidence is and what a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old could have done or where they could be.
I agree, 1,000%. And like you said, unfortunately, it's not a situation we don't see here on Court TV. We see it way too often. So we're going to continue to track this case and every development in the case. But while we have Chanley Painter here, we started this whole thing off talking about the reaction of the parents of missing children. And it takes us back to another story that goes back even further involving 2 missing children, one of whom was adopted, by the way, unbelievably. We're talking about Lori Vallow Daybell, her husband Chad Daybell, the so-called doomsday couple. And when Lori's children were missing, the reaction was even more extreme than this couple. For Lori, what was Lori doing while her children were missing? Just remind the people at home.
Right, Vinnie. Oh, let's go back to Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell in Hawaii, getting married while her children are missing. Also, just at a beach resort that probably you and I can't afford to stay. there. Well, at least I couldn't afford to stay there, this Hawaii beach resort. And even when confronted by media and police asking, where are your kids? Where are your kids? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not out searching, not out looking, not answering questions, not pleading for help. They're in Hawaii on the beach.
With a bag of money.
Oh, yeah.
Which they had gotten from the death of Chad's wife and the insurance money. They kept it in a bag. Unbelievable. So what's the latest in this case? Because we've been following and tracking this from the beginning as well. Where exactly are we in the trial against Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell right now?
Well, Lori Vallow Daybell's case has been put on hold almost a year now. I believe it was last March that a judge ordered her to be evaluated, and she's been deemed unfit to stand trial. So she is actually being treated in a mental facility in Idaho. But her co-defendant, her husband, Chad Daybell, his pretrial hearings are moving forward. In fact, he has 3 different pretrial hearings this month alone about some motions. And the trial date is set for January 2023, Vinnie. But again, Chad Daybell's trying to sever his case because he doesn't want to wait until his wife is competent to stand trial. He does face the death penalty for the murder of Tylee, Ryan, J.J. Vallow, and of course his wife, Tammy Daybell.
All right. Well, we'll continue to stay on that one. Unbelievable story. And when that trial happens, folks, the best coverage will be right here on Court TV, and Chanley Painter will be leading it all from Idaho for us. Chanley, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thanks, Vinnie.
When we come back, folks, we're going to get back to the Cal City Toddlers. And if, in fact, these parents are factually innocent, I'm going to explain to you why it would be the easiest case ever, the easiest case ever to win. And you could do it in about 5 minutes. I'll tell you how next.
Follow Court TV live over the air, uninterrupted. If you're watching television with an antenna, just rescan your channels now to add Court TV. And go to CourtTV.com to see the exact channel position and more ways to watch Court TV in your area.
So, if the parents of Orson and Orinn West, the Cal City Toddlers, are factually innocent, that's a big presumption I'm making here, factually innocent, not that prosecutors can't prove the case, not that they're not guilty in the eyes of the law. No, if they are factually innocent, if they did not kill their children, this case can be won in less than 5 minutes inside a courtroom. Super easy. In the indictment, and you have to go to the indictment, I'll read to you from count 1, and it's the same for all the counts. On or about September 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2020, Trezell West and Jacqueline West did with malice aforethought murder Orson West, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The key to this is on or about September 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2020. Okay? The prosecution has laid out when these children were murdered. Okay? You are the parent of a 3 and a 4-year-old. Okay? I don't care how little money you have. Everyone's got a cell phone. And everyone who has a cell phone has a camera. And if you are, in fact, a loving parent of a child and you've got a 3 and 4-year-old, there is no way on earth that you did not take a picture of your child for 3 months. There's no way. There's no way. That's impossible. That's impossible. I mean, go, and if you're not a parent, right? If you're a parent, you understand exactly what I'm saying. But if you're not a parent, go talk to someone who's a parent of a child who is 4 years old and younger. And say, can you look at your phone? And take a look at the photo roll in their phone. And you will see dozens and dozens and dozens of pictures and videos of their children. Absolutely. Absolutely. Then, if these children have, I don't know, grandparents, check their phones too. Check my phone. I fall in that category. I'll show you how many pictures I have. I'll show you how many pictures have been sent to me by my daughter of my granddaughter. Dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of pictures. That's all we do now. Is we take pictures of our kids all the time, doing everything. So Trezell and Jacqueline West said that these children disappeared on December 20th. Just show me one picture between October 1st and December 20th of those children anywhere in Cal City, anywhere on earth, for that sake. A picture taken by you, any member of your family, anyone. Are you telling me that you don't have one picture of your children who are ages 3 and 4 at any point for the last 3 months? Impossible. Impossible. That's why it's the easiest case in the world to prove. I mean, you could say it in your opening statement. You could put the picture up in the opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you heard the prosecutor and her story about what happened to my client's children. Let me show you a picture. Oh, there's Halloween 2020. There's Orinn. He's dressed up like I don't know. He's a what is that? Look, he's one of the characters from The Wizard of Oz. He's the Scarecrow. Oh, and look at his brother. He's dressed up like a clown. That's from Halloween. Oh, here's Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, we had Thanksgiving with the family. Oh, there he is. There's Orinn. He's eating his corn. And Orson is throwing his corn right at Grandma. Come on. 3 and 4 years old. The things they do, the things they say, hilarious. Hilarious. Amazing. That's why you become a parent, to enjoy those moments. And everyone walking around with a phone when one of those moments is happening, boom, you snap a picture. First day of school. Oh, look at that. Or oh, it's so-and-so's birthday. It's their brother's birthday, their sister's birthday, grandma's birthday. Come on. Not one picture. You don't have one photo of these twins. Because that's all you need to prove your case. That's all you would need. They allege these children were killed in September. You have a picture from October 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 31st, any day in November, any day in December. Did you take them to the mall to see Santa? I know it was COVID. By the way, how many more pictures did we take during COVID? When we're locked down in our homes with our families. Come on. You don't have one picture from Instagram throwing a funny filter on Orinn? Common sense. Common sense. Such an easy case. Such an easy case to prove if these parents are factually innocent. All right, folks, that is it for this week on the program. Thank you so much for listening. We do it every week here. Also have a TV show that's on every night at 8 o'clock Eastern, and then repeats 8 o'clock on the left coast as well. So in order to watch it, you can go to courttv.com, go to the Find Us tab, and you can find, there's a big map of the United States. You click on your state and you figure out where we are broadcasting your town, your city. Also, if you have a digital antenna, scan it, rescan it to find Court TV. Check out my show, 8 o'clock every night. Check out Chanley Painter as well. She's reporting from around the country, all of the biggest trials each and every day, right there in your front row seat to justice. That is it, folks. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Vinnie Politan. Have a great week. And as always, don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to courttv.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.